thank you, Kit, and thank you to Chris and Amy as well. I hope you're stimulated by three quite different, but I think really fascinating presentations there. And it's now time for question and answers for the next 20-25 minutes, so plenty of time. While hands are stirring and fingers hopefully hovering over Twitter to send in questions or on the app, I'll put the first question, but others put your hands up and the speakers, the paddles will go to you so that I can take your question in a second. But I'd like to ask Amy, especially as you spoke first. I had a conversation on Twitter about WeFarm and some of the things you were doing. And I was asked to ask you what the ingredients are for success in East Africa, and whether those ingredients could be replicated in the UK, and if that's something that you're thinking about at WeFarm.
Okay, so the second question first. As I mentioned, we want to go global eventually. At the moment, what we want to do is prove that it works in East Africa. So build a playbook for how we do it and then scale. So the UK isn't on the cards yet, but I did hear this morning that you don't all have access to the internet. So, you know, maybe it would be a good solution here. But yeah, if you've got ideas about how it could work in the UK, do come and talk to me. In terms of the ingredients for success, I think much like what Kit said, it's having the passion, and what we did is unlock kind of the knowledge and innovation that was there, and we just did it. I mean, we won the Google Impact Challenge to go out and do it, and we went back to kind of grassroots marketing, going out and meeting the people, you know, getting flyers out there, getting to the people and making it happen, really. East Africa is, I mean, I don't know if any of you have been, but it's really vibrant. And Nairobi is kind of like a hub in Africa, and there's so much innovation going on, there's so much tech development, they're years ahead of us. And in fact, when we were talking a few weeks ago, I think when we were thinking about innovations in agriculture, there's nothing to say that they wouldn't kind of step miles ahead of what we've done and leap straight to all those drone technologies and innovate that there. So yeah.
Great. Are there any questions from the floor that I can take? Question at the front, if the speaker could come in here.
Amy, Paul Temple, HTB. Two questions. Where does liability sit with this when people are swapping information? And the other thing is, when you've got such a huge database, how do you stop people from being swamped with text messages?
Yeah. So the tech itself stops that from happening. So, you know, we've been trying different things. So at the moment, when a user signs up, we get that profile information that's going to help the system identify the best people on the network. We also look at the keyword and the history of contributions. But the algorithms are built in a way that each question goes out to 40 people at the moment. And then as the tech gets more and more clever, it will reduce so that, you know, we'll know maybe in a few years that question, we'll know exactly who has the answers, and we'll send it just to those people. And then there's some answers where we'll have frequently asked questions, and we can send the same answers to those people. So it's just getting it more and more clever. What was the second question? Liability. Oh, liability. Oh, that's a tricky one. So when a farmer signs up, they do accept terms and conditions, that they know that it's all content that's coming from other farmers. That's the tricky one. We're really early stage. I don't know what the PR answer to that is, to be honest. But I guess, yeah, we have terms and conditions that farmers sign up to. We don't share any personal data, so when we do the data analysis, it's all aggregated information, so we don't share any personal data. And when a farmer receives an answer from another farmer, you'll just receive their first name, and that's all the information that you'd get. So if I ask a question, the question will go out as Amy has a question if I've given my name. And then when you get an answer, it will say, Tom recommends blah, blah, blah.
Kit, a question has come through on the app, and it's quite short, but it says, is this the end of the farmer? Hashtag moral conundrum, sad face.
No, I think I see myself with the Hans Hector as more of a farmer than I do an engineer, really. We're still trying to grow a crop. It still needs the human touch. We very much set out to prove a point of we could do this. So we didn't go in the field at all. I'm not prescribing a future where no one ever goes in their fields. We were just proving a point. We were just getting the attention of the world, which seemed to work. Yeah, I think it's as simple as that. I still want agronomists in the field. I still want that knowledge, and I still want that human touch. But do we really need to drive up and down in straight lines? I know that I personally like driving a tractor for about the first 2 days. And then you saw net cuts in, and et cetera, et cetera.
Great. Do I see any hands? There is, where am I looking? Ah, sorry, yes. Question over here.
Julian Little from Bayer Crop Science. Really interested, all three fascinating presentations, and my question is actually a combination to all three, but especially towards Chris. With things like new apps that we've tried to bring to the industry, things like Bee Connected, where we're trying to get farmers to tell beekeepers when they're spraying, and beekeepers to tell farmers where their hives are in conjunction on a farm. The problem has always been the exact location. So you're trying to drop a pin into a map and things like that. I guess my question to Chris is, are you getting interest from companies that are interested in putting together apps that require that very high precision yet? And I guess going forward to Kit, can you imagine those 3-word type locations being really useful when it comes to precision farming in the future?
So if I take my bit first, which I guess is, yes, there are lots of people who, for exactly those reasons, when they've got a precise place which they want to talk about or share, do use the 3-word address. So for example, if you go to What 3 Words and go to the products page, it's not just our app. There's a whole bunch of really specific pieces of apps and pieces of software, many of which may be exactly what you're looking for, which will then communicate it in a certain way or auto-email someone the pin location as a 3-word address that they can print and use elsewhere. So that's exactly how it's being used, how we'd like it to be used, and just the more I learn about it, is people make an app to do something, and if not everyone's on it and you've dropped a pin, then suddenly everything just breaks down and they just get on the phone again and go, oh, hang on, I'll meet you by the driveway, and you're back to square one. So I guess that's what we're trying to do, is bridge that gap between people using new tech, but a 3-word address is a really nice way to be able to use new tech and old tech and just type it into something or say it, and actually just make sure people get to somewhere. It's just crazy how much efficiency is lost every day by people not knowing where they're going.
Yeah, in terms of the 3 metre by 3 metre grid, it would be a good start. As I already said, the resolution we're currently dealing with is just not precision at all. I mean, you only have to take a yield map from a combine and you're limited to the header width, and the header width is now 12 metres. If we go to smaller machines, like what I prescribe, then 3 metre headers might match up quite nicely, and we could link the two together. I think that's definitely a useful thing to do. Further sighted again, I think we really need to look at being less prescriptive, and almost GPS is quite prescriptive with precision farming. Here's a place you're going to go and do this. We need to start adopting things like machine vision a lot more, so we can do the things like spot spraying, get our chemical use down by 80, 90% by using image analysis rather than pre-prescription and then GPS.
And Amy, just to sort of complete the set, how has what you've heard from Chris and from Kit, how does that sort of technology integrate or potentially integrate with what you're doing at WeFarm as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, for us, What 3 Words would be really interesting as well, in the sense that at the moment when a farmer signs up, we get location, which is, they give us their location and it's county level, because at the moment you can't geolocate an SMS, so having that more detailed information would be a good complement to our data sets to get that more precision in terms of location. And yeah, in terms of what Kit's doing, I mean, that's what we're not there yet, but I think it could jump ahead quite fast, and faster than we expect it to. I think also in terms of our development, we will be developing an app, because we know that, it's not always going to be SMS. There are already apps out there. People are starting to use smartphones, so in a few years they will be using it. So it would be easy to integrate other technologies into that, and kind of the smart sensing and all that that's out there as well.
I think I saw a question being, two hands actually over there. First, the gentleman nearer, and then there's one just slightly further back.
Peter Clark, I work for the Farming Community Network in the West Country. Chris, I would like you to make sure that all the delivery drivers, certainly on Dartmoor where I live, are given one of your apps. It'll save an awful lot of missed calls. But on a more serious note, the other two, Kit, as I say, I come from the West Country, Cornwall in particular, very small farms, small fields. How are we going to adapt your innovation to those small farms? Because they are, in fact, livestock, the majority of them. A lot of people here wouldn't even consider farming down there because of the size, and they have got that definitely against them. They haven't got the money to buy the machinery, and hence rely on contractors. Now, with your small machinery, we wouldn't have any problems, I dare say, by going down the lanes, whereas now big gaps have got to be cut in the hedgerows to get the big combines in if they can work in the fields. And then to Amy, you want to go worldwide, Amy. In Africa, it's a classic as far as I can understand. They are very hungry for information and help. Do you consider that farmers in the first world, if you like, are in the same category? And would they accept your sort of help in the right way? Thank you.
Who would like to go first?
Yes, okay. So I guess in terms of looking at small machines, can they help with this compaction issue, which is one of the big things we're trying to deal with? We would be more suitable than the alternative, which is controlled traffic farming or something along those lines, which is inhibited by small fields. Our small machines are obviously much more likely to be able to work in small, oddly shaped fields. The other thing that I'm talking about here is using tractors that still look like tractors. So anything you do with a tractor, we could do with a robot tractor. So we could go muck spreading with our tractor or anything, as long as the implement was scaled to suit our 40 horsepower. I think there was a second part to your question, which has now gone out of my mind. Any ideas?
Well, Chris, do you want to pick up Chris on the...
I think it's to Amy, wasn't it? Was it?
Because of their size and basically a lack of finances.
Yeah, so...
How can we afford it?
Yeah, so cost, yeah, sorry. Everything on our tractor, as I say, costs £10,000 to make it a robot. Because it is a small tractor that is mass-produced in Japan, it costs £15,000. So my robot tractor cost me £25,000. Even if I want to get some profit on that, I could probably have it on farm for $35,000. So you could still have 4 of them for the same price as a 200 horsepower tractor that you might go and buy today. So I don't think cost is inhibitive, and that's all to do with using this drone technology that's been developed in bedrooms and is ultimately very, very cheap.
Amy?
Yep. To your question as to whether UK farmers will adopt it, I'm not a UK farmer, so I don't know. But what I would say is that we're not creating any content, so we're not giving farmers the information. It's all farmer to farmer, so it's peer to peer. So the questions are the ones that they're having and that they're facing. So I would have thought that farmers in the UK have questions. They might not be the same ones as the farmers in Kenya, but I'm sure that when they come together, they have a lot of questions and they can share ideas and tips as to the latest technologies to adopt, etc. I've seen actually something in the UK, there's a Twitter, I think it's Farmers Question, I don't know what it's actually called, but there is a kind of Q&A and forum for farmers, and it seems to be quite lively. And so I think, I mean, we could put that question out to the public, but I think it would work.
I saw a hand, I think, out the back there, and there's another question over here, so we'll go to you first, sir.
Forbes Allworthy. I'm a founder of a company called Map of Agriculture, and I really enjoyed the 3 sessions. Thank you, and wanted to ask you a question which we ask ourselves, and it's this. The 20th century was a century of scale. People had big tractors and big businesses. And the century that we're now in is a century of networks. And particularly the hands-free hectare needs to become a network business, but at the moment it's university research. It will eventually, but the first 2 businesses are clearly network businesses. There's only one Google Maps, and there will only be one 1-3 words. It's a brilliant concept, and it's the same with WeFarm. Networks are natural monopolies. Facebook has a kind of monopoly on the party planning and so on of our teenage children. So the question that we ask ourselves at Map of Ag that I wanted to ask is, you know, when we have things that are going to go global, 1-3 words should and must go global, who should own them and control them? Because natural monopolies are hugely powerful. And of course, we're starting to see that with some of the bigger social networks now. You know, who should control these amazingly powerful things called networks?
Yeah, happy to take that. And it's one of those questions that has a sort of catch-22 element to it, because so having looked into basically trying to get systems adopted, one school of thought says, you know, let's do it open source so that nobody owns it. This is all a community-driven way that we're all going to get something going. And then there's another approach, which is do it through a private company, which means you get investment and funding and you have cash to push it. Obviously, we've gone for the latter one, but we're actually not the first people who've said, hey, global addresses don't work, let's make a new system, and no one's going to use latitude and longitude. First of all, 2 open source projects, notable, were started doing it. And they made an alphanumeric code. So instead of table, chair, spoon, they had a 9-length code. So you'd say, meet me at XJ4Q, 7L4MZ4TX, or something. And one of them was started by TomTom, and one of them was started by Google. And these were open source projects which people said, well, look, they're good for the world, let's get people starting. But unless you've got investment behind it, it's actually very hard to get anybody to do anything. And so even with investment, it's very hard to get anyone to do anything. So I would say, from having observed that, it's really hard if you're going to try a community-driven approach to get some of these standards adopted. I think from our point of view, there's definitely a sense of responsibility if people use our platform to make sure it's handled in that way. But I think there are really good examples of how that's done. And when we do deals with governments, we do it on a really long-term basis, that they know exactly what they're signing up to. They know exactly how the pricing structure is going to go forwards. They know exactly what happens if we go out of business and where they can get our code. And I think, having gone through this process, there are definitely ways that as a private company, you can do it so you're treating everybody fairly. And when you start doing business with big companies or big organizations, that they are protected. So that's really important for us, and that's why these guys come on board, and like the UN organizations, because they're satisfied as those terms. So I would say that there's, it's likely to be the quickest way to do it if you're a private company, but you have to just think about how you're going to do that and be responsible.
I can see 3 questions. I think there's one around the corner here, one here, and one over here. So we'll take them in order, starting over.
Hi, Tom Barn from Suffolk, East Anglia, arable farmer. This is for you, Kit. First of all, congratulations, a fantastic presentation. We're 4 years into a controlled traffic farming now on 12-metre widths and 24 spray. And the idea of trying to concentrate compaction to a smaller percentage on the field. And what you're advocating is to actually reverse that and go into smaller vehicles. So we're going the wrong direction. Do we want to be going to that smaller compaction but on a larger percentage of the field? Or is there a mathematical engineer out there who can work out the optimal scale?
The rule of thumb that's come out of a couple of papers is that if we can keep the pressure under a tyre to below 40 kilopascals, we don't cause any compaction that has an agronomic effect, roughly. So if the machines are small enough, you can let them run where you like. You can probably let them run when it's at field capacity and they'll still be okay. However, we're still running on GPS up and down in straight lines. So just because we're moving to smaller machines doesn't mean we might not also adopt a pseudo CTF system where, by merit of how they operate, they will always be running on the same area of land anyway. But if we can keep them small enough, it shouldn't be an issue. If you've got the field size, then CTF's great. And I don't think the thing I'm talking about is a full-stop solution for the whole world. I think it works quite nicely for us in Western Europe. But if you're dealing with an Australian outback or an American plain or a tundra, then a big tractor with a big wide implement is probably still going to be the answer going forward. You just might want to make them robotic.
I think there's a question, yeah, just over here.
David Linton, 3 brilliant presentations. My question is to Amy and Chris, but probably more to Amy. I think Chris has answered some of the questions. How did you fund your startup, and how do you derive your income? I think we've got that from Chris now, but Amy, how do you generate income to keep the investment and innovation going?
Yep. Sorry, I didn't hear the first part of the question. What was?
How did you fund your startup?
How do we fund it? Okay. So WeFarm was actually quite an atypical project in that it developed out of a charity project initially, from a charity called Cafe Direct Producers Foundation. And then we won the Google Impact Challenge to take it at scale and make it a social business. So we're still a social business. We still have the charity as an investor. And how do we make money? Well, that's my job to figure out how we're going to do that. At the moment, we had investors on board that wanted us to just grow the network, focus on scaling it before we started monetizing. And now we're at that stage where we're looking at different ways in which we can monetize. Essentially, we're going to monetize the data, but creating a marketplace around the farmers, so using the data to connect them to buyers and to connect them to loan providers, and then create early warning systems and alert systems. So I think what we have that others don't is that kind of real-time data into the unconnected part of the supply chains, which is hugely useful for organizations that buy and source from farmers. So for example, Unilever, they buy from tea farmers in Kenya, but they don't have that real-time visibility over what's happening. Or a commodity trader is making forecasts, but they have their yields and their models don't have that real-time element either. So I think it's about developing our data further so that people maybe buy a monthly subscription or an alert service. So we're testing things. We're doing some commercial trials this year, both on the data side. We've already had some paid pilots. And in terms of the kind of marketplace, it's how do we link. So when a farmer asks for a loan, for example, how do we link them to the financial service provider? And we take a commission on that. So that's the things we're looking at the moment.
I think
Happy to take ideas.
Time for probably two quick questions. I see one just here, and there's one over here in the corner as well. So we'll go to the gentleman here.
Adrian Ivory, Scottish farmer. Question for Kit. Kit, your fascinating talk and your trial was done on a beautifully flat field. As a Scottish farmer with very few flat fields and many undulating hills, how easy will it be to adopt your technology into that style of landscape?
Yeah, so something I probably skipped over in my what was Hans 3 hectare slide is the very square image we drew ourselves. And we said, look, we're going to try and do something that's going to be very hard on a very low budget. Let's make as much things easy as possible. So it was very square, very flat, no telegraph poles, very much on purpose. Going forward, yeah, we need to bring in things like the awareness systems that have been developed on cars. So your Tesla that drives itself down the road. We're looking now to bring in that technology. We're not going to develop it ourselves. We're systems integrators. That's what we do. We'll take it from somewhere else. We'll fit it to the tractor. That'll get the sort of avoidance type behaviors in. In terms of the undulations, anywhere that your current auto steer system will work, will be able to work. It's just a case of geometry.
And there was a question here, the lady.
Hi, this is Carla Borges from Brazil. My question is for hand-free hectares. Is this a solution that you are developing just focused on maybe Europe or some specific kind of soils? Because, for example, back in my country, we solve those kinds of problems with maybe no-tillage techniques, rotation, and we have big problems in maintenance of machinery because of distances. And imagine many mini tractors or mini robots being broken in a large field. So how would you manage to keep the maintenance of so many little equipments in an area?
Yeah, okay, so yeah, something I've not really considered outside of probably Europe, but certainly that's where I talk about taking the one person from the tractor seat and upskilling them, giving some training, and then turning them into a fleet manager. I just don't see a situation where no one will be in the loop. The thing is, I would prefer 5 small light machines in my field than 1 heavy large machine. We still need a person to then look after them, manage them, whatever. So it's about education of that person, upskilling their job, potentially making their job more interesting, more diverse, etc. Maybe even freeing up time, if the system's working well, to do more agronomic work. Look at this crop, look at the soil, look at the markets, decide when to buy, when to sell, those sorts of things. So it's just about empowering a person to do a more advanced job, I believe.
So thanks, Kit. We have, I'd say, 90 seconds left, and I had a final question that came through on the app. It actually asked for the 3 ingredients to success for each of the speakers, what 3 ingredients you think might be needed for success. I'll put it down to 1 ingredient and volunteer to who will go first. But what's the one thing that makes what you're doing a success? What do you need?
With 2 of my bosses in the room, a smile to get away with murder when I just crack on and do stuff.
Chris, Amy?
Oh, well, I mean, it's the same. You just have to go and try things and not be afraid if it doesn't work. Just take the risks. And I guess for us, we need the farmers.
For me, I'd say self-belief. I mean, on day 1, when we had an idea and said to the first investor, you know, we think the future is saying cabbage, teaspoon, cucumber to your car. We had some funny looks, and then you show up a few years later and say it's in Mercedes, and people give you a different look. So I think you just got to persevere if you think you're right, and crack on.
Great. Well, thank you very much to M&S for sponsoring the session. Thanks to these, I think you'll agree, 3 fantastic speakers, and if you could show your appreciation. So we're going to go out of that door.